You guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's look, I did create this really pretty blown out green halo eye. Shout out to MAC for the inspiration, because the MAC trend for the month of June is matcha latte, so a lot of greens in there. I did use a lot of MAC products, but I did sneak some other brands in there. But yeah, I really love the way that the look came out. It is very different for me, but it did help me to get into my creative bag a little bit. And I also thought it was the perfect time to sit and discuss makeup artistry, how to elevate your makeup or your client's makeup, whatever it is that you're looking to do. I gave some of my best tips and tricks on how to just kind of work around the face a little bit easier, a little bit better, a little bit smarter. So if you're interested in learning a little bit of tips from a MAC certified artist and you just want to see how I got this look, please keep watching and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, you guys, so we are starting with our fresh face and we're gonna start with the brows, which is my first tip. So if you are starting out with makeup and on yourself, like, you know, starting to, you know, want to work on improving your skills, either on yourself, on your clients, whatever, you know, you want to get better for, my first tip is to start with the brows, and more specifically start with just the eye makeup in general, because I feel as though the eyes are the most tedious of, you know, the makeup process. So I think that starting with the brows and the eyes more specifically, a lot of people say they don't like to start with the brows because they feel as though, you know, they put their foundation on and they feel like they can't work around the brows. Me, I just always prefer to start with the brows because I just feel like it gives the shape and it gives me a good direction of the eye look that I want. I feel like without seeing the brows, it's just very hard. Now, a good tip for filling in brows on a client or on yourself is to just always follow your natural brow. A lot of times we see that we want like a different brow look, or we see, you know, a look on a person, but really mapping out and understanding your shape, especially if you don't get your brows treated or anything like that, really just understanding your shape and just following that natural brow shape, to me, it makes it all the better. And another tip for me definitely would be to, if you are unsure about what direction you want the brows to go in, use a clear brow gel on the brows first and brush them upward instead of just using the spoolie that's on a brow pencil or on a brow brush. If you're using a pomade or something, or a powder, use a clear brow gel to hold the hairs up, and that will keep them more in place, so then you can draw your shape and everything like that from there. So that is a really good tip for the brows if you are having a little bit of trouble of knowing where their shape kind of is and how to kind of map out the shape on a brows, because some brows are difficult, especially when you're working on different clients. A lot of clients don't do anything with their brows. I don't do anything with my brows, so I feel like that is a very good tip to start with when working on the brows. So my next tip for working on the eyes is to use a base. Never go without a base. To me, I think a base is the most important. Now, if this kind of goes under the brows as well, if they have brow hairs that are unmaintained, like myself, you can use your concealer as a base. If you don't feel as though you need to clean under the brow with the concealer, you can still use a concealer as a base. I think a concealer is a great base, but use something, anything, a paint pot, a regular primer, anything that, for one, because the color, whatever color you decide to use, even if it's a natural color, will just show up better. It'll hold on to the face better. And also it will just make the makeup not crease or anything of that nature. So I always recommend a base. Also, I recommend a base because it can be more difficult to blend without a base. So like blending the shadows, it can be a lot more of a tedious process of trying to blend eyeshadows without a base. I think a concealer, especially a strong holding concealer, my favorite concealer to use is the MAC Pro Longwear concealer as a base. And I say that because it's not super thin. Like a lot of people use creams and things like that of that nature. But I personally do just prefer the concealer that's a liquid, but not too thin. Like the Studio Fix concealer from MAC is just a little bit too thin for my liking. So I do not, so I just prefer something that's like a little bit more full coverage, like the MAC Pro Longwear, but it is like a liquidy. Also another good one is the Born This Way, the Too Faced Born This Way concealer, but I am so stuck on using the MAC Pro Longwear that that's just what I prefer. Okay, now we're gonna get into some eyeshadow. So I'm using the old It's Designer palette to start. Actually, let me start with the base. So now that we're starting on eyeshadow, I can also talk about this. So when starting with eyeshadow, I like to always start with like a base shade just to pop on the top. So what I'm gonna take is a little bit of the orange soda and the burnt orange together. More of the orange soda because it's a little bit lighter, and then the burnt orange, just a little bit of that. And then I just place that all over the lid because that's just going to lay down the foundation of everything. Now, I suggest this for eyes that are kind of smoother, is applying the powder as a, you know, as a little base shade there, a powder eyeshadow. But on more mature skin, I do suggest using something cream as a base, preferably like a MAC paint pot. Those are my favorite to use on older clients that, you know, have a little bit more texture on the eyes and everything like that, just to give like a smoother outcome. Eyeshadow used to be very, very difficult for me. Now I'm gonna take this green shade because we are doing the MAC trend look today. So we're gonna take the green shade because it is Matcha Latte is the look, is the trend of the month for June with MAC. So we are gonna do the green. So the green, and this is the old palette. So I am unsure if you can still get this color, but there is something like called Wi-Fi or something like that that's similar to this color. So I am taking this and popping that on the outer corners. And to me, these are medium pigment, not super pigmented, but we are going to add that in the inner corner and the outer corner there. So unless the look requires it, in my opinion, I don't like to add any dark shades in the inner corner here. So a lot of people like to add like a dark shade and blend it all in the crease. I personally don't prefer that kind of look. because I think that it creates a shadow and it closes down the eye. What I've been doing preferably is just adding all of my shades to the outer corner and keeping all the dark shades on the outer corner and anything light on the inner corner there. So that is what I've been doing and what I prefer on a lot of clients and on myself, just to keep all lighter shades on the lid and on the inner corner, and anything that's going to be dark, just keep it on the outer corner unless the look requires it, like today where we're doing a halo smoky eye, or if you're doing a whole smoky eye, or you know, just whatever the look requires. But if you're just doing a natural simple look on a client, then I would just suggest just keeping everything kind of going that way and nothing that's going to block the eyes this way. Now I'm going to deepen this up a little bit with the D3 in the Anastasia. This is the number 3 Pro palette, the Pro Pigment palette, the Norvina, from the Norvina collection. So this is the D3. Yes, I'm going to use the D3, and I'm also going to deepen it up a little bit with the E1. So we will do that. But yeah, eyeshadow used to really intimidate me, you guys. And you see how that just kind of deepens it up there. And these are so pigmented. Now, I know some of these shades aren't meant for the eyes, or it's something is with this palette, with these palettes that she has, that they say that they're not for the eyes, but don't do what I do. I'm just saying, I mean, if it's at your own risk, but just, I'm gonna use them on the eyes because where else would I be using these? I mean, let's be honest. Let's be a little honest here. And then we're gonna take a little bit of the E1 color and deepen that even more. Now me, I'm not really into editorial looks, so the very clean girl makeup is not really my aesthetic. I do want to really get into it, how they just like do the one swipe, but I am very into the 2016 makeup blending culture, so shoot me, but I love it. Now I'm going to take the, how do I want to deepen this? And this is the Norvina Volume 2, and I'm going to take that dark brown shade down at the bottom. And I'm just going to make this a little bit smoky. I'm going to keep the color, the dark color, towards the bottom and smoke it out that way towards the outer corner, and just keep it like that. And then I'll add a little bit to the inner corner as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take the number 3 palette again, and we're gonna go in with this kind of greenish bluish shade. And this color is called the C5. My next tip is to always build the shadow first and then blend. So instead of just going in all messy and blending, just really place the shadow where you want it first and then blend it out, because it will create a better blend, in my opinion, than to just go all out and blend. I know it looks pretty, but placing the product first really just helps to keep that in control. And if you want to make this pop a little bit, just add a little setting spray. 1 squirt is all you need. Don't oversaturate the brush. It's not necessary. You see, you continue to build as you go instead of going all in. You place it directly where you want that product to go. And you can do this as a cut crease. I just prefer not to, or I'm not doing it right now. Just the way that I had it in my head was not a cut crease. Look. I'm just going to brighten that up just a little bit, going back in with the number 2 palette and using this color right here. This is B1, which is just like a bright green with a little bit of shimmer in it. Not super shimmery, just a little bit. And if it looks crazy now, this is another tip. Just wait until you add your concealer. I promise you. If you feel like, oh, the eye look looks so crazy, just wait until you add concealer and lashes, because that is where the magic really happens, in my opinion. And then once you add that color, you can go back in, make sure everything is blended in the way that you want it. And don't blend too much to the point where it takes all the makeup away, okay? Just enough. Now we're gonna do some liner. My best liner trick is to find the best eyeliner that works for you. My favorite is this e.l.f. Expert Liquid Liner, because I don't really like a felt tip liner personally, because, and I'm sorry, this takes a little bit of concentration on my part just to make sure that it's even and everything of that sort. But yeah, find a liquid liner that works for you. I just find this to be a smoother application just because the product goes on evenly. I sometimes feel like with a felt tip liner, once it starts to run out, the application isn't as smooth as where with this one, because you're dipping back into the liquid, that you can get a smooth application. It's kind of like a pen, like the old school pens. I personally can't live without doing a wing liner, but it's not necessary for every look or every client. But for me, in the way that I like my eyes to look on myself, not just not always on clients. This is also why you should do the eyes first as well. You can go back in and clean the liner if you need to and everything like that. So that is why I always prefer to do the liner first. Another tip for the liner is to do your non-dominant side first, because that's always the hardest to make even. Then you can do your other side and it will be easier to match this side. It'll be easier to match your dominant side to your non-dominant side because you have more control when you're doing your dominant side. And sometimes you do need to tug at the skin in order to get that smooth application as well. Don't be afraid to tug on it, but also know that tugging on it will expand the skin, and so you will have to even it out once you see where it sits on the skin without tugging. And keep checking to see if it's even on both sides, what side needs the work, which one, whatever. So my last tip for the liner is to just make sure that you use a skin tone concealer for any cleanups. That will really help. But getting the application precise first will help the most. So now we are going to apply some lashes. My biggest tip for the lashes would just be to wait until it dries. Wait 1 or 2 minutes until that glue is dried on that skin. I mean, not dried on the skin, oh my gosh. Wait 1 or 2 minutes until that glue is dry on the strip. I like to use the clear glue because that's just my go-to. I like it a lot better than the black. And these lashes, I'm so sorry you guys, they are some old lashes that I put together to give like this very like full look. It's 2 pairs together, so I don't know what the name of them are. I can't remember at this point, but yeah. Just really wait for the glue to dry on the lashes. And another tip is, if you're doing it on a client, because I know sometimes it can be tricky, putting it on clients. When doing it on a client, I would definitely say to have them look down when you're applying it instead of having them close all the way. Because my problem always when I used to put on lashes for people would be that the glue would get on their bottom, on the bottom of their lid or whatever. So that was always like something that I would get so nervous about. But once I started having them look down so they're not closing their eyes all the way, that really helped. But also the trick of letting the glue really dry, because if the glue is too wet, it will move around, and that will also make it more tricky for the lash to stay down. But then also when they're closing their eyes, the glue will if it's, you know, not dried, the glue will then go down to the bottom. Even on myself, I don't close all the way. I don't close at all actually on myself. Huh, interesting. And even still, you can see it's a little wet. And another good trick is to bend the lashes. You can do that so that it really curves to the eyes so you don't have as much trouble. All right, we're gonna let those dry a little bit more and we're gonna move on to complexion. So always start with the base. This is the one size, you can see it's been scratched off, but this is like the Secure the Blur, I think is the name of it. But we're gonna go back to the eyes in just a little bit, but we're going to work on the complexion. And that's like another tip, is that if you get frustrated with the eyes or whatever, or if you're unsure, like I was saying earlier, move on to the complexion, and then you'll be able to come back and really see what can be worked on with the eyes. But it's like getting the foundation down is like what's important. I mean, not the foundation, but yeah, the foundation. I mean, like getting the foundation, like figuratively and literally, like the actual makeup foundation. And, you know, getting like the base down. And it's all about knowing your customer and yourself, like your skin type, because that will really help. Oh, I'm having some green right there. So you could take a makeup wipe and remove it, but I am not gonna do that. But I like to always add a powder after I add my primer, because I am very oily, and this just allows for me the makeup to go on the smoothest. It allows it to go on the smoothest, stay on the longest, and it combats all of that oiliness that my skin seems to love. To like come through. All my shine comes through, and so that just combats it coming through for as long as possible. Next, I'm going to go in with the foundation. So I am using a mix of the Studio Fix Fluid in the NC50 and the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless in the Cool 12 shade. So I'm mixing those together. Now, when it comes to foundation, my biggest tip is to blend her out. Like really just blend her out, because to me, you have to blend her where all the crevices are. So like around the mouth, is for me one of the biggest places where makeup breaks down on me. A lot of people, it's around the nose, like right there. So I just say, don't let the powder and setting spray do all of the work at the end. Like, you don't want that. You want to make sure that you're doing all of the blending, and so that you create that flawless foundation, figuratively and literally. So, you know, start with less. Start less is always more, in my personal opinion. Like, I personally think that once, you know, you start on one side and you add the makeup there, and then you can keep building. Like, you see what, you know, what needs coverage. Like for me, I have some areas right here that really need a lot of coverage. I don't like to put too much foundation on the forehead, just a little bit, just to, you know, add some cohesiveness to the rest of the face. But like around my mouth, I blend around my mouth so much. And I'm gonna even just add like just a little bit more foundation on this side, because I feel like I do cover that side a lot. but I don't feel as though this side is as covered. And on my cheeks is where I apply the most foundation, because that is where I want it to look the most flawless. And just like, don't forget around the top of the mouth, the nose, like all of this area under the chin, just really blend, because it will create just everything else after that will just go on so much smoother. And you will thank yourself later, because then you won't have to like feel like, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that and blah 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 and all that stuff. Like, you'll feel like you got a complete look from start to finish, a very well blended look from start to finish. Just blend that foundation, y'all. Just blend her until your arm is hurt. Like, my arm is hurting right now, and it should be, because that's how I know that I'm really going in, making sure that everything is blended. So next we're gonna do the concealer. And and now everyone is different with this. I only pop the concealer right in the inner corner and down the nose. I don't put it on. I used to put it right here and down the forehead, but I don't do that anymore. Only because I feel like that adds more makeup to the skin than I would like. And I spoke about my little trick, but using a setting spray to blend is always my go-to technique, because I just feel like it just blends it so good, so good. And I use the matte one because that allows my skin to stay mattified, because that's what I love, is a very matte look. And I do let the concealer sit for just a little bit. This one is a more full coverage concealer, so I don't need it to sit as long. For more liquidy concealers like the Studio Fix concealer or the Makeup by Mario concealer, like those are a little bit less. But I did hear from, and I feel like it's happening right now, where it's like kind of picking up. So now that we avoided a little crisis with the under eyes, I am going to just go ahead and apply some bronzer real quick. Now with the bronzer, I always say this is another less is more. And where the placement is at the top of the ear and in a little diagonal section. I always say at the top of where the client or where your ear starts, and a little bit. Like, these Sunshocker bronzers are so pigmented that you don't need much. Just apply a little bit of that to just bring back the dimension in the skin, and then we're gonna powder up. Now, another thing about the powder is less is more, because we don't want to cake up. I forgot to say this about the foundation. With the foundation, I always use a brush. I avoid using sponges with foundation only because I feel like you get the best coverage with a brush, in my personal opinion. I'm just going back and reinforcing everything into my skin. And now I'm going to take the Easy Bake Huda Beauty. This one is broken. This is the pound cake. I broke it a little while ago, so I'm not able to show you guys, but I'm just going to take a little bit of this, and I bake a little bit with it, but not too much, because I don't want also to cake. But the brightening and highlighting technique is definitely a learned skill that you may have to practice a little bit. But once I got it down, I like really love it. The bright under eye is just, I'll never leave her. I love her so much. And then I'm gonna take my One Size Sweet Honey powder, and I'm going to cut my contour and powder up the rest of my face. Now, if you are going to implement this technique of cutting the contour and everything, just make sure that it's even on both sides when you look at it. And you can make this little face and just go right under the cheek, and that'll help you even it out. if you feel like you're struggling with that. So even though I am oily, I do keep the baking to a minimum just to avoid any cakiness, or even though I am, you know, I used to bake so long and I used to think that that would help with the oiliness, but honestly it doesn't. It makes it look more sloppy. So now you can go back in and fix anywhere that you want more definition with the eyes. Like I just want to add a little bit more green to like the outer corners. So this is where you can go back in and fix the eyes. Okay, so I just went and evened everything up, added the lower lash line, which was just the green and a little bit of the brown, and I smoked it. I feel like I want to smoke it out a little bit more and like a little bit lower, and just really add, like it's giving like a little grungy green, which wasn't my intention, and it's very exaggerated, but I love it actually. And then I went and used the Nicole Guerrero, the Forever Young, out of her highlight palette with Anastasia, and I just put that in the inner corner, just because with a halo eye like this, you don't want the eyes to be open a little bit because there's so much color in the inner corner. Now we're gonna move on to blush and then lips, and then we'll be done. So I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of raisin and Sunbask together. I'm gonna mix those guys. I haven't used raisin in so long, but it's so pretty. I love it. You guys know I'm really into glowy blushes, so that Sunbask just right on top. So pretty. I really wanted the blush to not be like super stand out, so I think this is really perfect. And then I'm going to go in with that Nicole Guerrero Forever Young again, and that's going to be my highlight. Yes, the eyes are really dramatic, and you know, no matter how dramatic or subtle your eyes are, the complexion should always be less is more. Even with the eyes, kind of less is more, and this just continue to build and build and build. So now we're gonna do lips. Ooh, maybe I need to sharpen this. So for lips, I always start on the inner corner and work my way that way, and I always fill in the inner corner. A good technique with the lips is if you can't see where the shape is just like this, doing like that with the lips is like a surefire way to be able to see where the line is. Me, I love an exaggerated cupid's bow with the liner because I don't have one without liner. And now I'm going in with the Spice World Velvet Blur, and then to stay on theme with our green trend, I'm going to use the Squirt Bomb, the Squirt Plumping Gloss Stick in Like Squirt right on top. Okay, you guys, so I just added some setting spray, and that is the completed look. This lash is not letting me be great, unfortunately, but that's just what happens. Okay, and I did not add mascara, so let me do that really quick. But this is the look. Yeah, she's cute. She's a little more dramatic than I expected her to be, but I like it. I like it a lot. Where is my mascara? But yeah, I'm just gonna blend these and then we'll be all done. This is the finished look, you guys. I really hope that you guys liked it. I hope that I gave you some really good tips. If you are getting into the makeup industry, if you just feel as though you have some skills down but not others, these are just my best tips that help me when I'm working on myself, when I'm working on clients. The biggest thing that I can say though is don't panic. You know, sometimes we go into it with this idea and everything like that, and then we get started and then it's not going as we planned it. But do not panic. That is my biggest thing, truly, you guys. So I really hope that you guys like this mocha latte look. Shout out to MAC for the June trend. I think it's so cute. I've always loved like a little green, and I did a little blown out halo eye, which was so pretty. So yeah, you guys, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. Please like, share, subscribe if you really are enjoying this content. If you feel as though I missed anything, comment down below and, you know, let me know what tips you have, or if you feel like I missed something that, you know, you think that I probably do and just didn't mention it. Let me know, anything like that. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next one.